Welcome back to the Arena of the Boardroom. Happy Tuesday. Here is number 2, part 2 of our series on evaluation. So episode 1, where we talked about yesterday, we went through everything of just kind of what we're going to break into. So today we are going to be jumping into phase 0, which is gathering information. Drink of the episode. I've got coconut milk next to me. Because I'm going to be doing one of these each day, I will not be having a adult beverage with each one. That could get a little bit excessive, but I am going through what I do have, making a couple of things out of it, hopefully, and having something tasty. We have coconut milk, and it sounded good, and it actually really is good. Cereal, smoothies, or just straight up. So that is where we are at right now. All right, so jumping in, we're going to go right into what this is. Phase 0, gathering information. So this is where it's going to start for really anybody that you talk to, whether you're looking for them or they apply to you. This is what I would call scouting or sourcing if I was still coaching. I mean, really, it's the same thing. You're just changing the verbiage up to make it fit towards an organization. I'm a big believer in this. You cannot recruit without scouting, right? Scout first, recruit second. If there was any player that I was looking for one of the teams that I had, before I even tried to get them on the team, I needed to have some baseline information about them so that there could be a conversation about what that would look like. This is going to set the stage for all of that. It's the most tedious and for some the most frustrating because there's a lot of dead ends that come with this particular process. You're going to spend a lot of time here and you might not get a whole lot out of it, but the information you do get out of it is actually going to be really helpful as you go through this process, not just with this particular candidate or prospect, but others in the future as you get more experience with it. So some questions that you want to ask yourself. Why is there an opening for this particular position within your organization? Ask that question so that you can better figure out who you would want to look for and why. And obviously that's going to be in conjunction with whoever the program manager, supervisor is. You want to have that discussion with them. Think about the person who may have vacated this position, who they were when they came in, who have you attracted to similar positions in the past? What does that look like? And is there a specific template of people that has worked, specific template of people that hasn't worked? Do you want to go outside the box? Do you want to do something internal? There's all sorts of things that you got to look at from the past that could potentially help you in the future. And then what baseline metrics are you looking at? When we introduce this whole thing, I talked about a grading system, a point system, something that allows you to start the initial evaluation so that you can kind of move through this informational phase into phase 1, which would be screening down the line. So starting with this, when you're in this phase, you don't go into this phase if you're in personnel, talent acquisition, recruiting. I'm just going to say all those and lump them together. You don't go into here without having a conversation with whoever you're hiring for, whether it's the department, a specific program, supervisor. You got to talk to them, because if you don't, you're going into a search just looking for something, and that is not a way to build a team. You need to have at least a template of what you're looking for. So discuss with them. What are the needs? What do you need? Right? What are you looking for? What didn't work? What is working? What do you need to make your team a more complete picture? That's all personnel is, and that's what our job is to find people to help complete the picture so they can make a decision. How did you want to ask them, how did they assess those particular needs? How did they come to the conclusion that this is what they're looking for and what they need? Help them vocalize it, not to be difficult, but because maybe they think they need something that they don't really need. Maybe they think they've got this ideal image, this picture, this puzzle piece that they think they're missing that really could be simplified with the help of talking it out. So talk to them. You want to treat this like an advanced search filter. That is an analogy that I use. So you need somebody with a certain education requirement, certain levels of experience. Maybe you want them to have a background in a specific industry. You have those 3 things set, and you look. And maybe there's not a whole lot of candidates that fit all 3 of those things. So you knock one of those things down, which is the least important of those to chip off. You chip that off, suddenly your candidate pool grows, and you can start looking at what's available there and the best in. Just do it that way. And again, this is a process that gets a little bit tedious because you want to try to find exactly what they're looking for, knowing that you probably won't, and having to try to find something that is the next best thing that you are able to bring in, develop, cultivate, and ultimately make an asset within your organization. So that's really where it's going to start. You got to ask yourself, what kind of information do you want? How much is too much? How much is too little? I am a believer that no information is bad information. It is always easier to make an assessment when you have more, but it can also be overwhelming because you have way too much and you don't have anything to do with it. On the contrast, if you don't have any information, this candidate is tough to get stuff out of. It can make your decision easier in some ways, but harder in some, especially if they do check a lot of boxes and you have to make a decision really based off of stuff that you don't know. So you've got to decide how much do you want to get, and then go into there. So jumping into the search, you're just doing really general data collection. You can go about this a whole bunch of ways. If you're in a bigger area, like we are in St. Paul, where we've got a ton of colleges, especially in the area, and if you've got a younger workforce, that right there is a really easy way to survey your workforce in your area or potentially expand regionally. You want to try to find out the priorities of the people that might be potential employees or people within your organization. That's important, and that's something that could be done internally, and you can get that information and measure it out. And that could be asking questions about work-life balance or priorities or desires or intent. You can do that because that way you can start looking for people that either maybe align differently with what you're looking for, or you can scale what you're doing to what the current market says. You also want to be able to identify your own internal trends to be able to find people who would be able to come in and fit with it. So if you've got really high turnover and people are leaving within the first 90 days, you might want to potentially look at what that demographic is. Is that a younger demographic, older demographic? Is it maybe something that has to do with the job? Either way, you want to be able to have information that allows you to best search for people who are going to fit seamlessly into your organizational structure. So that's how you're going to want to do it. And then you're going to want to be a little bit creative with some of those sourcing efforts. So we all know the common ones, right? Job boards, you got ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Indeed. Those are very common places. There's also, you can use things with general social media. Twitter, so they want to get into the job market space, but neglect that alone. There's a lot of people that still use Twitter. There's a lot of people that use Instagram. There's a lot of people that use Facebook that are all, most of them, working individuals. You can get a lot of information about the workforce and people looking for what based off of what they post, because people post on social media really how they're feeling. Whether it's 100% authentic to their actual life, people tend to put their feelings on social media because there's a screen in between them and there's a level of protection. That's data, that's information. And if you're looking for people, that is a spot that you could find some pretty interesting assets. Go down the list. Craigslist. They've got a section where people are posting jobs, but they've got a section where people are just posting their resumes and looking for general work. That is a huge source of people. And there's a Craigslist really in every city around the country and honestly around the globe. You could pluck some very unique candidates from there. And I will say that I put my resume on Craigslist because when I was looking and just hoping somebody would see it, I did get a couple of bites. So don't neglect that. Reddit is an option. And I mean, I'm just kind of going down the list here, but my point is everyone is a prospect or a candidate until they are deemed not. So don't limit yourself in your sourcing thinking they have to come from a specific place. If you get somebody from a different source and they work out, you're hailed as a genius. Now, inversely, if you get somebody from a different source and it doesn't work out, you're going to be looked at as a buffoon, but that's personnel. You're going to make some and you're going to miss some. But if you play it conservative and just look in certain spots, you're heavily limiting the type of people that you're going to get in, and that is not the way to run an organization. Identification. So this is the hard part. Really no different than asking somebody out, but you find somebody. We'll bring this into a live context. You see somebody, you think they're pretty, they're attractive, you want to go up and talk to them. What's the worst thing that they're going to say to you if you do? If you approach them, good faith, you go talk, worst they're going to say is, no, I'm not interested. And you can apply that to really anything. If you don't ask, you don't get. But when it comes to the job market, there's a good chance that if you approach them with something that sounds attractive based off of your sourcing efforts and you think you want to talk to this person, there's a good chance that they will likely say yes, because everybody's for sale. People aren't staying at jobs too long at this point anymore, and people are always looking for the new next opportunity, especially if it pays more. So in this phase, if you come out with a genuine, saw your profile, this looked interesting, if you personalize it and tailor it to them, there's a good chance that you're going to have a conversation with them and you can be able to move forward. Now, in saying that, be prepared for it to go nowhere with no reply. Recruits, people who I was interested in to work for me or play for me, I reached out to a lot of people. A lot of times I got a no, or I just didn't get, or not a no, I just didn't get a response. And that's okay too. Sometimes people don't want to reject you. But again, if you don't go after it, you're not going to have an answer. If you just go for the things that you think are surefire, that's not a way to do it. You've got to take a couple of risks and you've got to play around with this a little bit. So you've identified that person, you've talked to them, what information about them was available. Resume, professional works, that's standard. But social media, what other stuff do they have in their digital footprint? What things can you connect? What are some interesting data points? These are questions that you want to try to at least have on the docket that you can start putting together should you move forward with a screen with them. What else do you want to know? Are there any red flags that you want clarified? Is there something really unique? Begin shaping how you want to approach this individual in a potential screening interview setting. When you reach out to them, again, personalize that interaction, and it's going to let them know that you paid attention to them, the person, not just the candidate. And if you put in the work leading up to this with your sourcing efforts, the information phase and what is now phase 0, this is not a difficult thing to do. It's as simple as saying, hey, saw you wrote this article. That was a really interesting perspective. Would you be interested in talking about that more during a screening or an interview setting? And for this one, obviously, you'd be going into phase 1 with a screen. But that is how you break down barriers, break down walls. And I say that not in a predatory sense. I say that in a sense of you want people to feel comfortable, valued, and like this is not just the typical interview process. Not that this is going to be, oh, I'm interviewing for a job, but somebody's taken an active interest in my work. And people love talking about what they're doing, especially because there's a level of pride in it. Be prepared for a dead end, right? Once you reach out, there's a chance it might not go anywhere. Maybe they say no. Maybe they don't get back to you. Maybe they're slow to get back to you and you have to move on. Maybe you just aren't able to connect and create a time together. Maybe they just get another job. Maybe they're actively interviewing. Like, there's a lot of things, but be prepared for a dead end. But when you do get a chance to reach out, if they say yes, set that time up in the instant so that you can start transitioning to phase 1, where you're going to start building that profile of that person to get ready for the screening. What do you want to send them? Do you want to send them? So when I was going to meet a player for the first time, I sent things like personality tests, riddles, questions, things that would just kind of give us a baseline so that we could talk about and go over, because I was curious, right? The personality test, I'm not a big believer, similar to horoscopes, that you should base a decision off of it. But if you do a personality test, if you've got a team that has a bunch of personalities that are similar, and this person's also similar, you have to make an assessment as to whether or not another person of that type would work, or if you need a little bit of a contrast, and you can be open and upfront about that. You're not making decisions and hires and fires based off of that. You're using discretion in your process to build your team, and that's what we should want. Riddles questions, those quirky interview questions, those are just meant to throw people off and make them feel some kind of way during it. But also, if you do throw some nuance in there, you can get them and kind of see what their process is to work through a problem and in real time, and if they're willing to actually come up with a solution or give you an answer you think you want. So there's some of that to go there as well. But again, what information do you have? What do you still need, and what do you still want? When I was a coach, I wanted it to feel a little bit different and engaging. I wanted it to be that kind of a deal where it wasn't just, hey, I've got a spot and you've got to convince me why to take it. I was selling you as much as you were selling me. And I wanted it to feel kind of back and forth on that process. I wanted it also to feel a little bit weird and uncomfortable, right? Teenagers are kind of twitchy, so that really wasn't that difficult. but I wanted to put them on the spot a little bit to just make them think, okay, I need to think about this answer a little bit. And I was okay with wrong answers, and I did tell people that. But you have to kind of, again, break down those walls. And I measured intent through the process. If I gave somebody something, it wasn't because it's like, you have to do this. But if it was something kind of basic and simple, like, hey, we're going to review some film, I just want to talk to you about a couple of things, and they didn't even watch their own film, and you're asking them questions and they have no idea what they were talking about, that kind of told me a little bit of what I want to know. Kind of the similar here. If you have some things you wanted to discuss, send them the list. Give them some stuff you want to talk about. And if they don't give that to you, or if they're unable to do it and they didn't prepare, then that answers some of the questions and gives you some information. As long as your process is uniform and equitable, you can really do whatever you want. Now, careful with that, right? Uniform, equitable, maintain professional ethics and boundaries. Be aware of illegal questions. I'm not going to go into that list, but a lot of interviewers do ask illegal questions without even knowing it. But be careful. Inform them, if you get this person, that you plan to record the initial screening, and tell them why. Tell them the exact reason why. And the rationale that I would have is because I want this to be a conversation. I don't want to take notes with it. I want to engage you, talk about you, your work, and be able to answer any questions that you might have. And you can also throw in that this is part of our compliance process to ensure we're maintaining equitable interviewing standards. It holds us as an organization, as a personnel team, accountable. And that's the other aspect to it too. Inform them about potential accommodations. There's going to be more about this going into a couple of other phases, but ask them, do they need accommodations to do a recorded screening? Is there anything that would make it more accessible for them? Definitely good to offer that. And again, it opens up that process as well. So that's all of phase 0. An extra piece, quote unquote, maintaining your board. The board, when we were in athletics, are the players, the prospects of people that might be coming in. You might have your favorites. You might have somebody you really like, but you can't just zero in on them in particular and neglect everybody else. Because if you do, and you don't give the other folks a little love, you're going to potentially lose out on that number 1 option, and then lose out on number 2 and number 3 as well, which could put you in a real bad situation. Factor in those who apply. Go through the same steps as you would with somebody that you find as somebody who applies. Just keep it uniform. Keep the process uniform, and keep everybody on the list as you go through it. Don't reject anyone without going through the process. And I mean, honestly, that would be going through phase 1. If you invite them into phase 1, go through it, review it, and then you can make your decision from there. But if you get an applicant, don't reject them right away. They're showing you that they would like to work here. At the minimum, talk to them. Now, if you're screening or if you're sourcing people and you've yet to reach out to them, feel free to cancel it out if you don't feel like it's a good fit. But if they apply, don't just dismiss that, right? That's a free applicant. That's less work you have to do instead of finding them. You just have to now put the steps in place. This is the most thankless part of personnel, because you won't, can't, and shouldn't get everybody. You're going to miss out on some really good candidates who are going to be in demand other places, and you are going to make bad decisions and get people through, and it's going to be a waste of time. And of course, you're going to get the ones that are just like, man, I'm so happy we found this person. So there's going to be a wide spectrum. You're going to feel the misses more than the hits, but again, it's part of the process, and you will get through it. All right, so that is phase 0, gathering information. Up next is going to be phase 1, which is going to be the screen, and we will get into that one. Again, be aware, we do have some platform changes coming up, and we will be unrolling all of those as we get later into December, as we're going towards the new year. Should be really exciting. I love the direction of this space and the folks that we have contributing. On that as well, give our Medium blog a look. And of course, check out the Spotify if you want to see some of what has been recorded by some of our other content creators, and give us a follow on LinkedIn. And as always, appreciate the listen. We'll be back tomorrow for the next episode, which is going to be on Wednesday. Again, that's going to be phase 1, the screening. Have a good one, and we will see you tomorrow.